Panipat is a small town located in modern-day Haryana, India. This seemingly ordinary place holds a very special position in the history of the Indian subcontinent. It is situated on the flat plains of North India, about 90 kilometers north of Delhi. This strategic location made it a natural gateway to the heart of India for any invader coming from the northwest. Armies have passed through this corridor for centuries, making their way towards the rich and powerful city of Delhi. The flat terrain was ideal for large armies to maneuver and engage in battle. For this reason, Panipat became a historical stage where the fate of India was decided not once, but 3 times in epic clashes. The importance of Panipat cannot be overstated. It was the place where empires were born and where they were broken. The battles fought here were not minor skirmishes. They were decisive confrontations that led to fundamental shifts in political power. Whoever controlled Delhi controlled a significant portion of North India, and the road to Delhi ran directly through Panipat. Any defending ruler of Delhi had to meet the invading force here. To lose at Panipat meant losing the capital and, very often, the entire kingdom. The town thus became a symbol of historical change, a place where destinies were forged in the crucible of war, forever altering the course of Indian history. These 3 major battles, fought in 1526, 1556, and 1761, are crucial turning points. Each one introduced new rulers, new technologies of warfare, and new political realities to the subcontinent. The First Battle of Panipat saw the arrival of the Mughals and the introduction of gunpowder firearms on a large scale. The Second Battle of Panipat cemented the Mughal Empire's rule for centuries to come. The Third Battle of Panipat marked the decline of the Maratha Confederacy and inadvertently paved the way for the British to expand their influence. Understanding these battles is essential to understanding the transition from the medieval to the early modern period in India. This essay will explore each of these 3 monumental battles. We will look at the reasons why they were fought and who the main leaders were. We will examine the strategies they used and what happened during the actual fighting. Most importantly, we will discuss the consequences of each battle. We will see how the outcome of each conflict had profound and lasting effects, shaping the political and social landscape of India for generations. The story of Panipat is the story of India's transformation, a tale of ambition, conquest, and the immense human drama that unfolded on its historic plains. The First Battle of Panipat, fought on April 21, 1526, is a landmark event in Indian history. It marked the end of the Delhi Sultanate and the beginning of the powerful Mughal Empire. This battle was not just a change of rulers, it was a revolution in warfare and politics. It brought a new dynasty from Central Asia to the throne of Delhi, a dynasty that would rule over India for more than 300 years. The battle pitted 2 very different leaders and armies against each other. On one side was Babur, the ambitious Timurid prince from Fergana. On the other was Ibrahim Lodi, the Sultan of Delhi, who ruled over a large but discontented kingdom. Babur was a descendant of 2 of the greatest conquerors in history, Timur, or Tamerlane, on his father's side, and Genghis Khan on his mother's side. He had a small kingdom in Central Asia, but lost it and was forced to seek his fortunes elsewhere. After establishing himself in Kabul, he set his sights on the vast wealth of Hindustan. Babur was a seasoned military commander and a strategic genius. He was also an early adopter of new military technology, particularly gunpowder cannons and matchlock muskets. His army was small but highly disciplined, loyal, and experienced in the harsh realities of Central Asian warfare. Babur's ambition was not just to raid India for plunder, but to conquer it and establish a new empire. In contrast, Sultan Ibrahim Lodi commanded a massive army, believed to be over 100,000 soldiers and 1,000 war elephants. However, his strength was deceptive. The Delhi Sultanate under the Lodi dynasty was weakened by internal rebellions. Ibrahim Lodi was an unpopular ruler. Many of his Afghan nobles were resentful of his arrogant and suspicious nature. They did not fully support him, and some even secretly conspired against him. In fact, it was an invitation from Daulat Khan Lodi, the governor of Punjab, and Rana Sanga, the powerful Rajput ruler of Mewar, that first encouraged Babur to invade India. They hoped Babur would defeat Ibrahim Lodi and then leave, allowing them to seize power. The stage was thus set for a historic confrontation. Babur, with his small, modern and united force, marched into India. Ibrahim Lodi, with his vast but traditional and divided army, prepared to defend his throne. The battle would be a classic contest between numerical superiority and superior technology and tactics. It was a clash between an old, established power that had grown complacent and a new, dynamic force driven by ambition and desperation. The plains of Panipat were chosen as the battlefield, a place that would soon witness the dramatic fall of one dynasty and the spectacular rise of another. The primary cause of the First Battle of Panipat was Babur's relentless ambition to carve out an empire for himself. Having been driven from his ancestral lands in Samarkand, he saw the politically fragmented and wealthy land of India as his best opportunity. He believed he had a legitimate claim to the region of Punjab, as it had once been part of his ancestor Timur's empire. However, the more immediate trigger was the internal weakness and political turmoil within the Delhi Sultanate. Sultan Ibrahim Lodi had alienated many of his powerful Afghan nobles through his high-handed policies. This created a perfect opening for an external invader. The discontent among the Afghan nobility was a critical factor. Daulat Khan Lodi, the governor of Punjab and a relative of the Sultan, felt his position was threatened by Ibrahim's suspicious nature. He decided to betray the Sultan and sent an invitation to Babur in Kabul, asking him to invade India and overthrow Ibrahim. Another powerful figure, Rana Sanga of Mewar, also saw an opportunity in the conflict. He likely believed that Babur would behave like previous Central Asian raiders who would plunder Delhi and then return, leaving a power vacuum that he could fill. This web of intrigue and betrayal provided Babur with both the justification and the local support he needed for his ambitious campaign. Babur's army was significantly smaller than Ibrahim Lodi's. Estimates suggest Babur had around 15,000 men, while Ibrahim Lodi commanded a force that may have exceeded 100,000 soldiers and a large contingent of war elephants. However, Babur's army had several key advantages: media group, tight ranks of Mughal warriors, loyal soldiers rallying around leader, determined faces in historical army at stock at distribute equally. It was a cohesive and battle-hardened force, personally loyal to him. More importantly, Babur possessed a formidable artillery corps, which included cannons and matchlock muskets, technologies that were still largely unknown in North India. His gunners, Ustad Ali Kuli and Mustafa Rumi, were Ottoman experts who gave him a decisive technological edge over his opponent. Ibrahim Lodi's army, despite its massive size, was his greatest weakness. It was a traditional Indian force, relying heavily on cavalry charges and war elephants. The elephants, which were often seen as a symbol of strength, could become a liability if they panicked. The army was a loose coalition of Afghan nobles and their retainers, many of whom were not enthusiastic about fighting for the unpopular sultan. There was a lack of unified command and a coherent strategy. The soldiers were mostly mercenaries who fought for pay, not out of loyalty. This internal fragility would prove fatal when faced with Babur's disciplined and technologically superior force. Upon reaching Panipat, Babur demonstrated his brilliant military mind. He did not rush into battle. Instead, he carefully prepared a strong defensive position. He used the town of Panipat to protect his right flank. For his front, he implemented a clever strategy inspired by the Ottomans. He arranged about 700 carts, tying them together with leather ropes in the Ottoman Araba style. This created a solid barricade that would protect his artillery and musketeers. He left gaps in this line of carts, wide enough for his cavalry to charge through when the moment was right. Behind this fortification, he placed his cannons and matchlock men, ready to unleash a devastating fire on the advancing enemy. Ibrahim Lodi, confident in his overwhelming numbers, took several days to finally launch his attack on the morning of April 21, 1526. He advanced with his massive army in a traditional formation, with his fearsome war elephants leading the charge. The Lodi army moved forward like a great wave, expecting to crush Babur's small force through sheer weight. However, as they approached Babur's defensive line, they were met with a shocking and terrifying surprise. The thunderous roar of Babur's cannons echoed across the battlefield for the first time in a major North Indian conflict. The cannonballs tore through the dense ranks of the Lodi soldiers, causing immense confusion and casualties. The noise and fire from the cannons and muskets terrified Ibrahim Lodi's war elephants. These animals, which were supposed to be his greatest weapon, turned into a major liability. They panicked, turned around, and began trampling his own soldiers in their desperate attempt to flee the chaos. At this critical moment of confusion, Babur executed his masterstroke. He unleashed his flanking cavalry wings, known as the Tulugma tactic. These cavalry units wheeled around the Lodi army, attacking it from the sides and the rear. The Lodi forces were now trapped, compressed from the front by the cart barricade and attacked from all other directions by Babur's swift horsemen. The battle was over by noon. The Lodi army, despite its size, was completely surrounded and annihilated. Sultan Ibrahim Lodi fought bravely to the end, but was killed in the chaos, along with thousands of his best soldiers. Babur had achieved a stunning and decisive victory. The outcome was a testament to his superior strategy, discipline, and the revolutionary impact of gunpowder technology. The immediate consequence was the capture of Delhi and Agra, the twin capitals of the Lodi Sultanate. Babur proclaimed himself the new ruler, laying the foundation for the Mughal Empire in India, an empire that would shape the subcontinent's destiny for centuries. 30 years after its founding, the fledgling Mughal Empire faced a grave crisis. After Babur's death, his son Humayun struggled to hold the empire together. He was eventually defeated and driven out of India by the Afghan leader Sher Shah Suri. Humayun spent about 15 years in exile. He managed to reclaim his throne in Delhi in 1555, but his triumph was, well, short-lived. He died just a few months later in a tragic accident, falling down the stairs of his library. His son and heir, Akbar, was only 13 years old at the time. Akbar was away in Punjab with his guardian and the empire's most trusted general, Bairam Khan. The death of Humayun created a dangerous power vacuum. This moment of weakness provided an opportunity for a remarkable new leader to emerge. His name was Hemchandra Vikramaditya, popularly known as Hemu. Hemu was a Hindu of humble origins from Rewari, who had risen through the ranks to become the chief minister and general of Adil Shah Suri, one of the successors of Sher Shah. He was a brilliant military strategist and a charismatic leader. Seizing the opportunity presented by Humayun's death, Hemu marched from Bengal with a large army, determined to drive the Mughals out of India and establish a Hindu kingdom in North India after centuries of rule by Turkic and Afghan sultans. Hemu's campaign was, honestly, swift and incredibly successful. He conquered Agra and then marched on Delhi. He defeated the Mughal governor of Delhi, Tadi Beg Khan, in a fierce battle. After capturing the city, Hemu declared himself the independent ruler and took the ancient Sanskrit title of Vikramaditya. This was a significant moment, as he was the first native Hindu ruler to sit on the throne of Delhi in over 350 years. His rise represented a serious threat to the very existence of the Mughal Empire. For the young Akbar and his regent Bairam Khan, the situation was desperate. Many of their advisors suggested retreating to the safety of Kabul. However, Bairam Khan was a man of iron will. He understood that abandoning Delhi meant abandoning India forever. He overruled the cautious advisors and made the courageous decision to march forward and confront Hemu. To instill discipline and show that he would not tolerate cowardice, Bairam Khan had the defeated governor, Tadi Beg Khan, executed for abandoning Delhi. This harsh measure sent a clear message to the Mughal nobles: there would be no retreat. The small Mughal army, outnumbered and far from their base, advanced towards Panipat to face Hemu's victorious and much larger force. Once again, the fate of an empire would be decided on this historic battlefield. Hemu's rise from a common saltpeter trader to the de facto ruler of North India is, honestly, one of the most extraordinary stories in Indian history. He possessed exceptional administrative skills, and perhaps even more impressively, an even greater talent for military command. It's said that he fought and won 22 consecutive battles for his Sir Masters against rival Afghan chieftains and rebellious governors. His success, was based on his personal leadership, his skillful use of a large elephant corps, and his remarkable ability to win the loyalty of both Afghan and Rajput soldiers. When he embarked on his own campaign for the throne of Delhi, he was truly at the peak of his power and confidence. After his victory at the Battle of Tughlakabad, where he defeated the Mughal forces near Delhi, Hemu's control over the heart of North India seemed, pretty secure. He commanded a massive army, including 1,500 war elephants, and the momentum of victory was really on his side. He took the title of Raja Vikramaditya, a title used by legendary Hindu kings of the past, signaling his intention to restore a native Indian polity. His coronation in Delhi was a direct challenge to the legitimacy of the Mughals, who, at that point, were still seen by many as foreign invaders. Hemu's army was a diverse coalition, but it was held together by his compelling leadership and the promise of victory. The news of the fall of Delhi and Agra sent shockwaves through the Mughal camp in Punjab. Akbar, who was just a boy of 13, suddenly faced the potential collapse of his inheritance. The majority of his nobles were understandably terrified by Hemu's reputation and the size of his army. They argued that their forces were simply too small and that they should retreat to Kabul, regroup, and attempt to reconquer India later. This was, to be fair, a logical and prudent course of action. The Mughals were heavily outnumbered, and a defeat would mean their complete destruction. The loss of morale was a significant threat to the young emperor's cause. It was in this moment of crisis that Bairam Khan's leadership really proved decisive. As Akbar's regent, he held the real power. He was a veteran commander who had served both Babur and Humayun, and he simply was not willing to give up his master's hard-won empire without a fight. He made a powerful speech to the Mughal nobles, appealing to their honor and reminding them that their only hope lay in victory. He famously argued that it was better to die fighting for an empire than to retreat in disgrace. His resolve, combined with the execution of Tadi Beg, silenced all opposition and unified the Mughal army for the coming struggle. On November 5, 1556, the two armies met for the Second Battle of Panipat. Hemu's army was much larger and honestly held a clear advantage in numbers, especially with his fearsome corps of war elephants. He was so confident of victory that he personally led his forces from atop a massive elephant named Hawaii. Hemu launched an aggressive, all-out attack, hoping to overwhelm the smaller Mughal army with a massive charge from his elephants and cavalry. Initially, his strategy seemed to be working. The sheer force of the charge began to push back the Mughal flanks, and it really looked like the Mughal army was on the verge of collapse. The Mughal commanders, under the overall direction of Bairam Khan, responded with courage and discipline. While the Mughal center, commanded by Ali Quli Khan Shaibani, held firm, the left and right wings began to buckle under the immense pressure from Hemu's elephants. The battle raged fiercely for several hours, with the outcome hanging in the balance. Hemu was in the thick of the action, directing his troops and encouraging them from his howdah. He seemed to be everywhere, a real figure of inspiration for his soldiers. The Mughals were fighting a desperate defensive battle, but they were not breaking. Their archers and cavalry continued to harass Hemu's forces, preventing a complete rout. The turning point of the battle came in a single dramatic moment of chance. As Hemu was leading a charge and seemed close to victory, a stray Mughal arrow struck him in the eye. The arrow pierced his brain, and he collapsed unconscious in his howdah. Seeing their leader fall was a devastating blow to the morale of his army. The rumor that Hemu was dead spread like wildfire through his ranks. Panic set in immediately. The soldiers, who were fighting for him personally, lost all will to continue the fight. The command structure of his army disintegrated, and his soldiers began to flee the battlefield in disarray. The elephant driver of Hemu's elephant tried to carry his unconscious master away from the battle, but he was captured by the Mughal commander Shah Quli Khan. The wounded and unconscious Hemu was brought before the young Akbar and Bairam Khan. Bairam Khan, wanting to solidify the victory and establish Akbar's martial prowess, urged the young emperor to behead Hemu and earn the title of, that is, Slayer of Infidels. Akbar reportedly refused to strike a dying man. Bairam Khan then executed Hemu himself. The victory was complete. Hemu's head was sent to Kabul as a sign of triumph, while his body was displayed in Delhi to crush any remaining resistance. The Mughal Empire was saved and restored. The Third Battle of Panipat, fought on January 14, 1761, was honestly one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the 18th century. It was a confrontation between two major powers vying for control over the collapsing Mughal Empire. On one side were the Marathas, a Hindu warrior confederacy from the Deccan Plateau. By the mid-18th century, they had expanded their influence across much of India and were the dominant power in the subcontinent. They controlled Delhi and were the protectors of the powerless Mughal emperor. Their ambition was to establish a pan-Indian empire, Their main adversary was Ahmad Shah Abdali, also known as Ahmad Shah Durrani, the ruler of Afghanistan. Following the assassination of Nader Shah of Persia, Abdali had carved out his own powerful empire centered in Afghanistan. Like previous invaders, he was drawn to the riches of India and sought to assert Afghan control over the prosperous regions of Punjab and Delhi. He saw the expanding Maratha power as a direct threat to his ambitions. Abdali was a brilliant and experienced general, leading a formidable army of Afghan and Persian warriors. He also formed a crucial alliance with Indian Muslim rulers, such as Najib-ud-Dawla of Rohilkhand and Shuja-ud-Dawla of Awadh, who feared Maratha dominance. The immediate cause of the battle was the conflict over the control of Punjab. The Marathas had driven out Abdali's son and viceroy from Lahore, extending their frontier to the Indus River. This was a direct challenge that Abdali simply could not ignore. He launched a major invasion to reclaim his lost territories and punish the Marathas. The Marathas responded by sending a massive army north from the Deccan under the command of Sadashivrao Bhau, the cousin of the Maratha Peshwa, or Prime Minister. He was accompanied by Vishwasrao, the Peshwa's young son and nominal commander. The Maratha army was a grand spectacle, accompanied by a huge number of non-combatants, including families and pilgrims. The two armies maneuvered for several months before finally meeting at Panipat. The Marathas established a fortified camp, but their long supply lines back to the Deccan were cut off by Abdali's forces. For nearly 2 months, they were trapped in their camp, with food and fodder running out. Skirmishes and small battles occurred daily, but Abdali refused to launch a full-scale attack, preferring to let starvation weaken his enemy. Finally, on the verge of starvation, the desperate Maratha commanders decided they had no choice but to break out and fight. On the morning of January 14, 1761, the Maratha army marched out of their camp to give battle. The consequences of the Third Battle of Panipat were, honestly, catastrophic for the Marathas. The battle was a complete disaster. The Maratha army was decisively defeated, and the slaughter was immense. The top leadership, including Sadashivrao Bhau and Vishwasrao, were killed, along with many other important Maratha chiefs. Tens of thousands of soldiers and non-combatants were massacred in the battle and its aftermath. The news of the defeat was a crushing blow to the Maratha court in Pune, and the Peshwa died soon after, allegedly from grief. The defeat at Panipat halted the Marathas' northward expansion for a decade and shattered their dream of creating a pan-Indian empire. While Ahmad Shah Abdali was the victor, his victory was in many ways a hollow one. His army had also suffered heavy casualties, and he had no desire to stay and rule from the turbulent city of Delhi. His soldiers were mutinous and eager to return home to Afghanistan with their plunder. After confirming the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II as the ruler of Delhi and appointing Najib-ud-Dawla as his regent, Abdali returned to Afghanistan. He and his successors would continue to launch raids into Punjab, but they were never able to establish permanent control. The battle, therefore, did not lead to the establishment of a new Afghan empire in India. The real, long-term beneficiaries of the Third Battle of Panipat were neither the Marathas nor the Afghans, but the British East India Company. The battle created a massive power vacuum in North India. The Marathas, the only power strong enough to challenge the British, were severely weakened and their prestige was shattered. The Mughal Empire was a mere shadow of its former self. The Afghans had retreated. This left the political landscape of North India fractured and open for a new power to exploit. The British, who had recently consolidated their control over Bengal after the Battle of Plassey in 1557, were perfectly positioned to take advantage of this situation. In conclusion, the three battles of Panipat were pivotal moments that fundamentally shaped the course of Indian history. The first battle established the Mughal Empire, introducing a new era of political consolidation and cultural synthesis. The second battle ensured the survival and restoration of that empire, allowing it to flourish for the next 2 centuries under rulers like Akbar. The third battle marked the beginning of the end for the Maratha ascendancy, and by eliminating the 2 strongest Indian powers, inadvertently cleared the path for the rise of British colonial rule. The plains of Panipat, therefore, stand as a powerful symbol of the dramatic shifts in power that have defined the long and complex history of the Indian subcontinent.